The scaffolding gave way beneath me like paper. I hit concrete hard ribs first, then skull. When I came to, the lights above me flickered too bright, and a dull pain pulsed through my side like a slow metronome. Multiple fractures, mild concussion, possible ligament tear in my right knee. Not the worst-case scenario, but bad enough to keep me in the trauma ward for weeks. Rachel showed up the next afternoon. Mascara perfect, perfume strong. She sat in the corner chair, scrolling her phone more than looking at me. "You scared the hell out of me," she said, but her voice was flat. Rehearsed. She stayed 20 minutes. Said work was crazy. Said she'd come by tomorrow. She didn't. The nurses were kind. Painkillers made the world fuzzy around the edges. I passed the time watching ceiling tiles and thinking about nothing. Until the third day, when I realized Rachel hadn't asked a single question about my surgery or the recovery plan. Just vague updates. Work's still nuts. The dog's fine. I'm fine. Something didn't fit. She said she was working doubles at the clinic. I checked the calendar app we used to sync schedules. Her entries had stopped the day of the accident. Her texts were short. Her voice, distant when she picked up. "I'll stop by tomorrow, okay? Always tomorrow." By the end of the week, I started keeping track. How many visits? How many minutes? How many excuses? It wasn't anger I felt. Not yet. Just an ache that went deeper than the bruises. Something was off in a way that felt familiar, like a dream I couldn't quite remember. On the 7th night, I asked her if she wanted me to call less. She said, "No, of course not," and then didn't say anything for a full minute after that. When she hung up, I stared at the screen for a while, my reflection dim in the black glass. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just awake. Eric stopped by on his way off shift. We'd known each other since basic. He'd pulled me off the ground after the fall, rode with me in the ambulance, made sure the medics didn't miss the swelling behind my ear. "You look like shit," he said, dropping into the chair beside my bed. "Still do, but at least now you're vertical." I smiled, or tried to. Breathing hurt. He glanced around, lowered his voice. "Hey man, not sure if it means anything, but when we were loading you in, Rachel was crying on the phone. Not like sobbing, just tense. Real intense. She said something like, 'I don't know what to do now,' and then turned away when she saw me looking." I frowned. "She didn't say anything about that." He shrugged. "Could be nothing." But it didn't feel like nothing. Not anymore. That night, I propped the hospital tablet on my lap. Painkillers made my fingers heavy. But I still had admin access to our home network security cameras, thermostats, synced logins. Years of small conveniences now felt like a hidden toolkit. I downloaded a remote keylogger, something I'd once used to monitor my work-from-home desktop when a virus messed with logins. Legal gray area. But the kind of thing you use when you need truth more than peace. I didn't expect much. Just curiosity. Quiet suspicion. The logs came in the next morning. Chrome. Gmail. Facebook. Messages. A name appeared once. Then again. Then again. Zach. I didn't recognize it at first. It was the frequency that caught my eye. Messages like, "Did you sleep okay?" and "Still thinking about last weekend." Nothing explicit, but familiar in the way that coded language always is. The kind of words you use when you think no one else is watching. I stared at the screen, heart slow. This wasn't a stranger. This was someone known, repeated, consistent. I didn't feel rage. I didn't throw the tablet or call her screaming. I just wrote the name down in the back of my notebook, next to a list I'd started. Dates, logins, timestamps. Rachel hadn't lied to my face. Not yet. But she would. And I'd be ready. The hospital's Wi-Fi was slow, but steady enough to get what I needed. By the time Rachel sent her usual, "Hope you're feeling okay" text that morning, I already had 5 days of keylog data archived and tagged. I wasn't reading it all, just indexing. Timestamp. Contact. Content. Anything recurring went into a folder I named Neutral Observations. I didn't name it Evidence. Not yet. Her phone records weren't hard to access. We shared a carrier plan. I downloaded the logs into Excel and ran a basic filter. One number showed up 38 times over a 2-week span. Zach. Always after 9 p.m., always under 10 minutes, always when I was supposed to be asleep or sedated. Next came her Google Calendar. She hadn't changed the sharing settings, another oversight. Lunch appointments labeled Pilates, book club, errand, all overlapping with Zach's text timestamps. I didn't need to catch them in bed. I just needed to see the rhythm of it. Wednesday night. She's at work late. 8:22 p.m., call from Zach. 9:05 p.m., location ping at a bar downtown. Saturday, girls' day with Michelle. No calendar entry, but a charge on our shared credit card from a boutique hotel in Bellevue. Zach's name in the key log again that night. That was amazing. Sunday, she brought me soup and didn't meet my eyes once. I wasn't cataloging betrayal, I was mapping behavior. Behavior becomes pattern, pattern becomes truth. I took screenshots, saved copies, moved everything to an encrypted drive I carried in my hospital bag, labeled folders with boring names: tax docs 2021, renovation receipts just in case. By the end of the second week, I knew Zach's full name, the gym he worked at, his Instagram handle, and his taste in craft beer. Rachel had changed. But not her passwords. Not yet. That's how I found out their first message went back 8 months. I didn't confront her. I didn't speak her name aloud. I just pressed save again and kept going. I called my lawyer 3 days before discharge. Told him I needed to update my will and adjust some financial proxies. Hospital stuff, I said, as if it were a precaution instead of a pivot. We met in my hospital room. He didn't ask many questions, just printed out what I needed, updated the signatures, made the copies. My assets were now divided cleanly: retirement accounts, house equity, business shares from my remodeling company. Rachel was listed only where she had to be. I changed that. I opened a new checking account through a regional credit union that didn't share data with our joint bank. Small transfers, 300 every few days. Enough to go unnoticed, especially if she wasn't watching, which she wasn't. She thought I was asleep by 8 p.m. most nights. I was usually reading the logs by then. I ordered a backup phone and had it delivered under a friend's name. Prepaid. Quiet. Logged into only one secure email address I created solely for what came next. Then I reached out to Sandra. We'd met once 2 years ago when I needed to vet a subcontractor with a suspicious resume. She ran a discreet investigation firm for civil clients. No drama, no trail. I sent one line via email. Need a quiet look into Rachel and Zach. Discretion is critical. Let me know your fee. Her response came in 10 minutes. Flat rate. Digital surveillance, location logs, photo confirmation. You'll have a report in 10 days. I assume you want no contact between us until then? I wrote back. Correct. I gave her everything she needed. Rachel's work schedule, Zach's known addresses, locations I'd cross-referenced from the phone logs. I didn't tell her what the endgame was. I wasn't sure I knew yet. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't even defense. It was positioning. Chess, not checkers. Rachel came by the hospital later that evening with clean laundry and a new set of excuses. Something about her phone dying, traffic being awful. She kissed my forehead, said, "Only a few more days and you'll be home." I smiled. Then watched her leave through the security camera feed I'd hacked from our front door 2 nights before. She didn't know what I'd already done. The nurse wheeled me out of the hospital just after noon. Rachel pulled up in the SUV we'd leased last year, the one I paid for, and smiled like she'd just found me at the airport. "Ready to get out of here, tough guy?" she said, kissing my cheek. She'd brought fresh clothes, my favorite hoodie, and a new playlist for the drive home. "Thought we'd start fresh," she added, "new beginnings and all that." Her voice was too bright, too rehearsed. Like a commercial for a marriage she wasn't really selling anymore. I smiled, buckled in, and said nothing. The house was spotless. My tools had been moved. The spare bedroom was suddenly an office, with candles and throw pillows I didn't recognize. She'd redecorated while I was recovering from a fractured rib cage. "I figured we needed a refresh," she said when I lingered in the hallway. "Something to match where we are now." Where we are now. Dinner was ready when we walked in. Chicken marsala. She lit a candle. "No more hospital food," she laughed. I ate slowly, careful not to wince when I shifted. She kept the conversation moving, how her boss might promote her, how the gym was doing a new wellness program. She asked no questions about my recovery. None. I watched the way she poured wine but didn't touch it, the way she glanced at her phone under the table, the way she used the word "we" like a crutch. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I stayed awake watching the ceiling, breathing through the dull ache in my ribs. The bed still smelled like her perfume, but something was missing beneath it. Her warmth maybe, or maybe mine. The house was clean, but the foundation had shifted. And we both knew it. It started with a change in her appetite. Rachel skipped coffee for 2 mornings, pushed eggs around on her plate, complained that the smell of bacon made her nauseous. I pretended not to notice. just nodded and asked if she was feeling okay. Probably a bug, she said, brushing it off. The third morning, I found the test in the trash. Top layer of tissues, like she wanted it hidden but not buried. It was still faintly pink. Positive. She hadn't said a word. I held it for a moment, then placed it back exactly where I'd found it. She was waiting, I realized. Waiting to see what I'd do, or maybe waiting to see if she could pretend it was mine. That afternoon, she started leaving baby-related browser tabs open on the shared laptop. Onesies, due date calculators, prenatal vitamins. All of it staged like breadcrumbs. Like proof for a story not yet told. I played along. "I'm thinking of going back to part-time," she said one evening, watching my face. "Too much stress isn't good." "For what?" I asked. She blinked. "Work, just in general." I nodded. Probably smart. She exhaled like she'd dodged a question I never asked. That night, I added a new folder to my encrypted drive. I labeled it Preparation. Inside, I copied the test result photo I'd taken with my burner phone, timestamps included. I didn't feel shock. I didn't feel grief. I just felt clarity. Whatever story Rachel was getting ready to tell, I'd already started writing the ending. The email arrived on a Thursday afternoon. No subject line. Just a secure link from Sandra, the private investigator I'd hired 3 weeks earlier. Password protected, as agreed. Inside, photos, time, stamped logs, annotated maps. Zach was exactly who I expected him to be. 10 years younger, lean. Always smiling in that way guys smile when they've never had to rebuild anything. A personal trainer at Rachel's gym, class instructor, group sessions. The kind of job that lets you slide under the radar while looking like you have your life together. Sandra included stills from 3 different days. One at a juice bar, his hand on her waist. One outside a hotel in Capitol Hill, kissing his neck. One in our driveway, Zach standing in Rachel's robe, holding a smoothie. The hotel receipts were worse. 4 bookings over 2 months, all paid in cash. Sandra noted that he'd used a rewards number tied to a previous alias, Zach Harper, though his real name was Zachary Paul Hensley. Criminal record in 2 states. Nothing violent, but enough to make the picture clearer. Credit card fraud in 2016. Bankruptcy filed, then withdrawn. Sued by a former employer for breach of contract. Always moving, never rooting. The kind of man who doesn't stay long enough to clean up the mess he makes. Sandra's final note read simply, "I'll keep monitoring if you want, but you've got what you need." I closed the laptop, sat back in the chair. The house was quiet. Rachel was upstairs, probably reading, or texting, or planning the next breadcrumb. I didn't feel rage. I didn't punch a wall or scream into a pillow. I'd seen enough of both in other men to know it never helped. Instead, I opened my encrypted folder and added a new file. Subject confirmed. I labeled the photo of Zach in my driveway. Occupying residence without consent. The pieces weren't just falling into place. They were fitting together with intent. She told me on a Sunday. We were sitting on the back porch, the one I rebuilt last summer while she was on a retreat with her yoga group. The sun was low. She wore one of my old sweatshirts, the sleeves pushed past her elbows. "I have something to tell you," she said, eyes soft but rehearsed. I'd seen the look before on women in job interviews or reality shows. A kind of curated vulnerability. "I'm pregnant." I didn't speak right away. She bit her lip, continued. "I know we didn't think it could happen, not after everything, but I took a test. 2, actually. I just didn't want to say anything until I was sure." "How far along?" I asked. She blinked, surprised I didn't ask if it was mine. 6 weeks, maybe 7. I haven't seen a doctor yet. I was waiting to tell you first." I reached out and took her hand. "That's incredible." Her eyes welled. "You're not mad?" "Why would I be?" "I don't know. We weren't trying. Not really. And with your accident and everything," I squeezed her hand. "Maybe it's what we needed." She let out a breath, relieved, grateful, lied right to my face and cried doing it. Later that night, she curled into me in bed like we were 19 again. Like nothing was broken. Like she hadn't torn this house apart piece by piece and dressed it up in lavender candles and designer throws. I played my part. Let her think she still had control of the story. But in the drawer of my nightstand, beneath the painkillers and heating pad, sat a printed copy of the paternity test request form. I'd already mailed the samples Zach's DNA, collected from a discarded protein bar wrapper Sandra had retrieved, and the prenatal sample Rachel thought I knew nothing about. Results would take 2 weeks. I'd waited this long. I could wait a little longer. The towel came wrapped in a sealed evidence bag, hand-delivered by Sandra in a plain envelope marked client copy. She didn't come to the door, just texted, "It's there. Good luck." It still smelled faintly like eucalyptus oil and whatever cologne Zach wore, cheap and overconfident. He'd used it to wipe his face after a group session at the gym, then tossed it in the bin like a signature. Sandra had fished it out, gloves on, no witnesses. I paired it with the prenatal documentation Rachel had left half-tucked into the recycling bin 2 weeks ago. The page included her blood type, test panel, and gestational age, just enough for the private lab to work with. I used a secure courier, paid in cash, no trail, no questions, just a reference number and a quiet promise of discretion. 10 days later, I got the call. "Mr. Riley," the voice said, calm and clinical, "the fetal DNA is a 99.92% match with the reference sample labeled Z. Hensley. There is 0 statistical probability you are the biological father." I said thank you and hung up. The room didn't spin. My hands didn't shake. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked out at the backyard, the one I'd leveled, seeded, and fenced by hand. The garden boxes Rachel said she'd plant herbs in but never did. The new solar lights I installed last spring. All of it, now part of a story she had rewritten without asking. I opened the drawer, pulled out the printed form Rachel had called a miracle, and wrote 2 words across the top in ink. "Not mine." Then I got back to work. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "Time to lock it down," I said. Over the next week, I rewrote everything that tied Rachel to my future. She was removed as emergency contact, insurance beneficiary, joint account holder. The house remained in my name, something she'd forgotten when she encouraged me to refinance last year. My retirement and pension plans were secured through clauses she'd never bothered to read. The baby, officially and irrevocably, was declared non-heir eligible in my revised will. Not out of malice, just clarity. Sandra compiled her final report photos, surveillance logs, financial inconsistencies. I matched them against my own documentation, phone records, digital correspondence, the DNA results. A clean file, indexed, timestamped, cross-referenced. I labeled it Case 314R, R for Rachel. I gave my lawyer the package with only one instruction: be ready to move when I say. At home, Rachel was glowing. She started leaving baby name books on the nightstand, rubbed her stomach in front of the mirror, smiling at herself, asked if we should go visit her parents soon. "They'll be thrilled once they know you're on board." I smiled. Said I was making plans. I was. She had no idea how far along I already was. It started with a text, thinking we should do a baby announcement party. Just something small, close friends, family, celebrate a new chapter. Rachel responded within seconds. "OMG, yes. That would mean so much to my parents. You're really coming around, Hyderay." I said all the right things, told her it would be a surprise reveal, maybe a video slideshow. "Our story," I said, "a fresh start." She offered to help. I declined. Told her I wanted it to be a gift for her, for the baby, she cried. I booked the venue 2 neighborhoods over. Classy, intimate, enough room for 30 people, but not so many that anything would feel impersonal. Rachel's parents were the first invites I sent. Her mother replied with emoji hearts. Her father didn't respond, just confirmed attendance through Rachel. I added Zach to the list under the pretense of helping with my physical therapy follow-up. I phrased it carefully. "Been meaning to thank you in person, man. You helped Rachel stay sane through the recovery." He replied, "No problem at all. Happy to be there." I hired a videographer I'd worked with before, quiet guy, professional, no questions. Told him I wanted a documentary-style keepsake of the moment we told everyone. Paid extra for quick edits and discreet wireless playback gear. I rehearsed the final cut in my head a dozen times. The transitions, the overlays, the soundtrack soft, nothing dramatic. Let the footage speak for itself. Rachel picked out a white floral dress the day before the party. "I want to look pure," she said, half laughing. "You will," I replied. That night, I sat at the dining table alone, reviewing the master file on a flash drive labeled Baby Reveal, Final, MP4. It was all there. The photo of the positive test, the prenatal records, the smiling shots of Rachel and Zach, time-stamped, tagged, time after time, the hotel receipts, the final slide, paternity results, 99.92% match, Zachary Paul Hensley. I closed the file and slid the drive into my coat pocket. Everything was ready. They came dressed like it was Easter Sunday. Rachel's parents arrived first, her mother clutching a gift bag wrapped in pink tissue, her father stiff in a navy blazer. Zach walked in 20 minutes later, casual, buttoned-down, confident grin, the kind you can only wear when you think no one in the room knows your secrets. The room filled with polite chatter, clinking glasses, compliments about the catering Rachel had nothing to do with. She smiled so hard I thought her face might crack. "He did all this," she said, hand on her stomach. "Can you believe it?" I stood near the front, close to the projection screen. At exactly 2:15, I tapped my glass with a fork. "Thanks for coming, everyone. Means a lot to us, really. I know it's been a wild year, but life finds its way. That's what this is all about, new beginnings." Rachel squeezed my hand, eyes wet. "Before we reveal the big news," I said, "I put together a short video. Just a little something to tell the story the way it deserves to be told." The lights dimmed, the screen lit up. It started innocently. A montage of home photos, soft music, us smiling and filtered snapshots. People laughed. A few dabbed their eyes. Then it changed. Footage of Rachel in a hotel lobby. Zach waiting at the elevator. A timestamp in the corner. Next clip, Rachel laughing as Zach kissed her neck outside a boutique hotel. Another timestamp. No commentary. Just evidence. Rachel stood frozen. Zach shifted beside the appetizer table, face draining. Next slide. Paternity results. Confirmed biological father. Zachary Paul Hensley. Rachel let out a noise I still don't have a name for. Her mother gasped. Her father said something I didn't catch. Zach turned and left. Didn't say a word. Rachel collapsed into the nearest chair, mouth open, no sound coming out. The lights came back on. I held the remote steady. "Thanks again for coming," I said. "There's dessert in the back if anyone's still hungry." I walked out the side door into clean daylight. Left the mess exactly where it belonged. She called 37 times over 2 days, texted enough to fill a novel. At first, it was panic, then pleading, then rage, the full cycle. "Please talk to me. You ambushed me. That's not fair." "It was a mistake, Mark. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you'd forgive me." "You always forgive me." I didn't reply. On the third morning, I opened the door to find her sitting on the porch steps, hair tangled, no makeup, like she thought unraveling herself made her more believable. "We need to talk," she said. I stepped past her and sat on the bench near the walkway. Let the silence stretch. "Please," she said, kneeling in front of me like it was theater. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. I was scared. We'd grown apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I do now. We can. Her eyes searched my face, waiting for some crack to appear. "There's no we," I said quietly. "Divorce papers were filed this morning. You'll get a notice by the end of the week." Her mouth opened, closed. "You're entitled to your personal belongings," I continued. "Clothing, sentimental items. I've listed everything else for donation or sale. But the baby is not mine." She dropped her hands. Tears came, but they were slow, almost calculated. "Zach's being sued," I added. "Another client from his gym. Same story, same charm. She's pressing charges for fraud and coercion." Rachel flinched. I stood. "This isn't revenge, Rachel. This is me moving on, clean, quiet." She reached for my hand. I didn't offer it. "You always said marriage was about forgiveness," she said. "No," I corrected. "I said marriage was about honesty. You just weren't listening." I went back inside and closed the door. She didn't follow. She didn't come back. The divorce finalized with a digital signature and a brief call from my lawyer. Clean, no appeals, no countersuit. Just a line drawn. I sold the house in under 3 weeks. A young couple bought it. First home, first baby on the way. I left the garden tools behind. Let them build something new. Everything Rachel didn't take went to Goodwill. 3 carloads of curated illusions candles, throw pillows, white wine glasses engraved with inspirational quotes. I moved to a small town near the coast, took a job teaching carpentry at a local trade school. No suits, no spreadsheets, just sawdust and students who wanted to build things with their hands. The cabin I rented had no dishwasher, no upstairs, no pretension, but every part of it was mine. I met Claire during a faculty orientation, licensed therapist, sharp eyes, calm voice. She asked real questions. listened without interrupting, never made me feel like a project. We got coffee once, then again, then a walk along the shoreline where she told me about her own divorce, her own reset. No drama, just truth. She asked about mine. I told her pieces. Not all. Enough. She didn't flinch. Some nights we sat on the porch and said nothing at all. Just let the quiet mean what it needed to. I wasn't in love. Not yet. But I was free. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. No more shadows, no more lies. Just clean air, clear lines, and the sound of waves breaking steady and constant, like something I could finally trust. The letter came in early spring, handwritten, no return address. Just my name, spelled in that familiar curve I hadn't seen since she stopped writing notes on the fridge. I opened it on the porch, the wind light off the ocean, the sound of gulls somewhere distant. I don't expect forgiveness, it began. I just wanted to know, do you ever think about the baby? No signature, just that one question. I folded the letter once and slipped it back into the envelope. No anger rose up. No guilt, either. Just a kind of muted understanding. She hadn't written because she missed me. She'd written because the silence had grown too loud. The answer was simple. Yes, but not the way she meant. I thought about the baby sometimes, what kind of life it might have, who it would believe its father was, what stories Rachel would tell, what truths she might twist. That was her burden to carry now. What I thought about more was what I'd stopped. I thought about the years I would have spent raising a child under a lie, building a future from sand. About the holidays staged like forgiveness, the arguments softened with forced affection, the weight of pretending day after day that betrayal hadn't poisoned the roots. I thought about the silence I'd lived in before, the kind that doesn't come from peace, but from avoidance. That wouldn't be my life anymore. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to explain. Later that evening, I walked the shore behind the cabin. The tide had come in strong, flattening the sand into a clean, mirrored stretch that reflected the orange burn of the sky. I passed a cluster of driftwood, stopped, watched the waves roll in. Not everything can be fixed. Some things have to be left exactly as they are, broken, revealed, and walked away from. I pulled the envelope from my pocket, held it over the water a moment, then let the wind take it. It danced once, twice, then disappeared beyond the dune. I didn't need a fire to burn the past. I just needed it to keep moving behind me. And it had. Ahead of me, the shoreline curved gently out of sight. I kept walking. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.